Barely a day after suffering key political blows in Wisconsin and Florida, President Donald Trump barreled ahead with the boldest gamble of his second term, a sweeping tariff offensive against virtually every U.S. trading partner. It was a move pulled straight from his old playbook, when cornered, double down. But this time, the stakes are exponentially higher, the backlash fiercer, and the consequences far more dangerous. This wasn't just a policy rollout. It was an ideological escalation. From the White House Rose Garden, Trump stood firm in his belief that protectionism, long dismissed as fringe economics by experts across the political spectrum, is the only path forward. With an air of defiance, he championed tariffs as a solution to decades of industrial decline and foreign competition, even as the global economy shuddered in response. The Dow Jones shed nearly 4,000 points in 2 days. Markets panicked. Retaliation from China and Europe came swiftly. Economists, once cautious in their wording, are now openly warning of a severe recession. The timing of this maneuver couldn't be more politically tone-deaf. Trump made this announcement less than 24 hours after his party underperformed in Florida and outright lost the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, despite pouring tens of millions of dollars into the effort. The political signal was clear. The American electorate is restless. Instead of recalibrating, Trump detonated a policy bomb that threatens to damage the global economy, devastate middle-class families, and ignite a fresh wave of instability in an already fragile nation. The White House's reaction to the turmoil was as surreal as it was disturbing. Even as Wall Street hemorrhaged value and the economic fallout mounted, Trump insisted the economy was booming, then disappeared for a day of golf. Administration spokespeople stuck to their script, boasting about rejecting business as usual Washington, while millions of Americans watched their retirement accounts, investments, and consumer confidence collapse in real time. And the damage isn't limited to numbers on a stock ticker. These tariffs are driving up the cost of goods across the board, from electronics to cars to groceries. That means higher prices for everyone, especially working-class families already struggling to keep up with inflation. Many of these households now face a grim double bind: stagnant wages and rising costs, with no relief in sight. The promised renaissance in domestic manufacturing is a far-off dream. The pain is immediate and brutal. Trump's defenders argue this is the necessary cost of reasserting American strength. They say it's a short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. But even among his supporters, doubts are creeping in. Frank Amoroso, a retired engineer and longtime Trump voter, gave the president's second-term performance a tepid C+ and worried openly about inflation and interest rates. When core members of your base start expressing fear about your policies, it's not a sign of strength, it's a red flag. On Capitol Hill, unease is spreading among Republicans. Some, like Representative French Hill, are breaking ranks, openly criticizing the administration's blanket tariffs on close allies like Canada and Mexico. Hill's skepticism is rooted in economic reality. Tariffs don't generate revenue, they cost it. And more importantly, they damage relationships with key trading partners who could have been part of a united economic front. Instead, Trump is isolating the U.S., creating an atmosphere of distrust and escalating retaliation. Meanwhile, Democrats are seizing the moment. The victory in Wisconsin, led by Supreme Court candidate Susan Crawford, has electrified the base. Even after Elon Musk and allied conservative super PACs poured $20 million into the race, voters made their discontent unmistakably clear. Cory Booker followed it up with a 25-hour floor speech, rallying the party and stoking momentum for what many hope is a long-awaited political resurgence. But it would be a mistake to interpret this as purely political theater. Booker's message, and those of organizers like Ezra Levin from Indivisible, are tapping into a real and growing fury across the country. As Levin pointed out, raising prices across the board for millions of Americans during a time of economic anxiety is a recipe for a generational collapse. Not just of policy support, but of trust in institutions, trust in leadership, trust in democracy itself. The most ominous element in all of this is the broader shift in how the government is functioning, or failing to function. Trump, increasingly emboldened by the lack of institutional resistance, is ruling by fiat. His administration is no longer constrained by traditional checks and balances, and dissent within the Republican Party remains muted or purely performative. The tariffs are just one piece of a larger puzzle, a political strategy built on disruption, polarization, and brute force governance. It's not about reforming trade policy. It's about reshaping the economic and political landscape to serve a narrow ideology, no matter the cost. And the cost could be staggering. This is not just a misstep. It's a high-speed collision course with economic instability, international isolation, and domestic unrest. If inflation continues to rise, if the markets continue to spiral, if consumer confidence collapses and jobs disappear, what we're watching may not simply be the unraveling of Trump's economic policy. It could be the unraveling of America's post-war global standing. It could trigger a systemic crisis. There is still time to avert the worst. Congress could intervene, but Republicans are still paralyzed by loyalty, fear, or political calculation. Democratic energy is rising, but momentum alone won't reverse the damage already being done. And meanwhile, the president remains unmoved, convinced that his instincts, no matter how many times they defy reality, are infallible. This isn't strength. It's recklessness masquerading as conviction. And if history is any guide, leaders who go all in on reckless economic warfare rarely walk away unscathed. The real question now is, will the country?